Сакала да ве поздравам сите и да искажам благодарност до господин Штелиев и до Каролина, што ни овозможија да видиме јас и Роберт тука денес и да представиме некоја тема која што е малку поразлична, но сепак многу апликабл за корпоративниот свет. Ќе продолжам дискусијата на англиски, поради тоа што Роберт е од Англија. So, Robert and I, we are really delighted to be on this conference, which is organized by an institution which is leading the way in diversity and inclusion. We can see that through the Macedonian Stock Exchange Code for Corporate Governance, which is saying that by 2025 we need to have 30% women in leadership positions, in management and supervisory board. This is really impressive to hear from Macedonian Stock Exchange, which is one of the institutions which is leading the corporate world in Macedonia. So therefore, I would like to mention that Robert and I today will discuss about the crucial importance of diversity and inclusion in shaping the future of the corporate world. This importance of diversity and inclusion has been recognized by the European Union with implementing of EU directive from 2022 about, which is aiming to have by 2026, mid-2026, 40% of women on non-executive position and 33% of women on all director positions. So in Macedonia, I would like to give you the statistics because statistics are always interesting. Macedonia is one of the leaders in the Adria region, with having 25% of women on management and supervisory board positions. But still we have a lot of things to do in order to be aligned with the EU directive. So today, I would like also to introduce you to Robert Baker, who is one of the leaders in inclusive executive leadership, and with whom we will discuss about Men-Ally support in global diversity and inclusion. Also, in Macedonia, we have one initiative which is part of the Adria group, and it is talking about implementing, aligning with the EU directive, and that initiative is called Women on Board Adria. So Women on Board Adria is working with the government, with the international partners, and also with the businesses to align with the EU directive, because we know that all these countries in the Adria region, they are working on the path to get in the European Union. But that's not the most important. The most important thing is that Women on Board Adria is working on building the pipeline of women who will be ready to sit on board level. So Robert, first, welcome in Macedonia, and I hope that you will have great memories from my home country.
Wow, thank you very much, Tanja, and how lovely to be with you. Thank you for being here for this session. It's probably not the most obvious session you could have in a stock exchange conference, right? Talking about diversity and inclusion. Yes, you have got a beautiful country. I'm going to say, I looked out my window this morning and saw Lake Ohrid, and I thought, wow, how lucky you are to have that here. So I just want to say it's great to be here with you. I just want to start also by saying you can get really annoying foreign experts that come and tell you how you should do things in your country. I want to be clear that I'm not one of those, okay? What I'm here to tell you about is the work that we're doing in other parts of the world, in Europe and in other parts of the world too. And just to give you an idea of some of the trends that we're seeing there, because I think some of those trends will ultimately be trends you'll be interested in and could even impact your businesses. So I think I just want to kind of get that point out of the way. And what's clear, I was at a meeting yesterday of Women on Board Adria, right? There were over 100 women in the room, all very keen to play a greater role in business life in Macedonia. Okay, so there's a real desire, if you like, to get more gender diversity at the top and throughout organizations. So I want to talk a bit about how we've done that elsewhere and how that can help you. And I think especially as you play with your businesses on a global stage, you'll come across clients and competitors that have got a lot of diversity in their ranks, and so it's important that you think about this from a global competitiveness point of view. Now, as the co-chair of European Women on Boards, we did a report in January 2024 about the state of diversity on boards in Europe. And we came up with 2 recommendations that I'd like to recommend to you today, okay, in your companies. The first one was that senior leaders should make gender equality in decision-making a business priority and recognise the critical role that women can play in business. So that was the first recommendation from European Women on Boards. The second one was that companies and their leaders should set clear, detailed, ambitious targets for broadening diversity on your boards and in senior management. So this is the direction of travel, right? To have more diversity and to have targets. So we're going to have a great discussion about that, I'm sure, because not everyone's always in favour of that. But in the fireside chat we're going to have, I want to share some of these thoughts. Before we start that, I've got some work for you. Now, I think always at this time it's quite good to kind of stand up and get a bit of energy, a bit of movement. So I've got a perfect excuse for you here, because what I need you to do, I'm hoping, I think what the guys in the tech need to do is go back to the beginning of my presentation and line that up. Could you go back to the beginning? You need to go back to the beginning of that presentation, sorry. We can talk amongst ourselves while this is happening. Right, okay, present. Super. Let's go for it now. Okay. Why is that not coming up with the okay. No idea. Let's just check the next one. We're not getting any my presentation. We tested it, believe me, we tested this out earlier. So I've got no idea why it's not working. Is there something coming up now? If you go to present mode at the top there, or yeah, now we should be in, right. Okay, now here's the action part, right? Okay, you've all got smartphones, right? Everyone has a smartphone these days. You need to take a picture of that QR code. Now, if you can't see from the back, you need to get up and come to the front and take a picture of the QR code. Okay, we need everybody doing this. How many are there here, Tanja? You say? Oh, I think we've got more. Maybe 50, 60. We want 50, 60 entries in this, okay? So vote with your smartphone. You're going to get to vote in a second. All I need you to do right now is to get to the page that you can see that looks like that. Okay? Everyone happy? Yes. Are people at the back happy? Have you got it? Yeah? Are we ready? Are we ready? No, we've still got a few more. Okay? I know this is taking a little time, but it's good to get everyone on the same page. All right, we're going to go with this now. We're hoping enough of you have got it, okay? So here's the first question for you. How effective have gender equality efforts been in your organisation? This is the one that you work for, okay? So obviously the boss has already put it very effective. That's great to see, okay? But actually, we're seeing, here's some interesting developments we're seeing here. Now, while you're voting on this, I've got to tell you, the Women on Boards Adria voted on exactly the same questions yesterday. So I'm kind of interested to see, is there any difference between what they said and what you're coming up with, okay? So what it looks like actually, there's a lot of good work being done, okay? It looks like companies here are doing great stuff on gender equality, but obviously there is still some room for improvement. We'd like to get all the companies into the very effective box here and move those moderately effective ones along there. In fact, actually, yesterday, moderately effective was the most popular result, so it's actually pretty close, okay? Followed closely by highly effective, okay, similar, and moderately effective. So, you know, actually we've got some quite good correlation between what we had yesterday and what we have today. Right, are you ready? Are you enjoying this? Right, are you ready for the next one? Okay, we have 6 of these, so 5 more to go, and let's see how we get on. Right, okay. Has your company set targets as the European Women on Boards recommended for representation of women in leadership? Okay? Let's see what you come up with here. And unsure is a fine answer, by the way, because companies don't always tell you if they've done this. Okay? Okay, so looks like no is the biggest answer here, and that was very much the case yesterday too, as well. Quite a big number in the unsure category, which means your company is either not communicating about its targets, or it doesn't have them, or it's just not clear. Okay? So very interesting, strong correlation. but more work to be done there if you want to meet up with what European Women on Boards is saying you should do, which is to have those targets. Now, for the 5 people that have got targets, are those targets being met? Okay, this is going to be very interesting, isn't it? No, yes, or unsure. Okay, now we have 5, right? Now we've got, oh wow, we've got 6. Oh, we've got more now. What's going on here? I don't know what's going on. But it looks like the targets are kind of, you know, maybe not being met, unsure. Oh my God, I have no idea where this is going. The answers yesterday. The answer. I can't believe this. We got more answers than we had for the one about if we got targets. But yesterday, the biggest category was unsure. Okay, people weren't sure if their company were meeting their targets, which I thought was brilliant. Again, companies are not communicating this if they have targets. Okay, 2 to go now. Now, these are the 2 most interesting ones. Okay, so get ready. So, how engaged in gender equality are men in your organisation? Okay, you can answer this if you're a man or a woman. Just answer how engaged you think they are. Okay. And actually, I'm going to get Tanja to comment on this one.
This is a good picture to see.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
Engagement, 11 engaged.
Yeah.
Really good.
Now, obviously, there is still scope for improvement. We can get those people that are not engaged and minimally engaged into the right-hand side here, and we can get more people from the moderately engaged into the highly engaged box. But you know, that's not a bad picture. Yesterday, by the way, the top answer was moderately engaged. It's exactly the same. Okay? So we're all agreeing, right, that men are moderately engaged in gender equality in most organisations. How do we get them even more excited about this? This is the key question. Okay. Now, one of the things that we men need to know if we want to work with women in our organisations is whether they're being sponsored and whether they're being mentored for development. So the next question is, and this is to the men, by the way, it's men only, are you currently sponsoring or mentoring a woman for their career development? Now actually, if you're a woman and you're doing this, by all means vote too, but I'm trying to get to the men here, okay? And we've only given them 2 answers, no or yes, and it's interesting to see actually. Competing, okay? Now, we often get in these conversations something called male overconfidence, okay? Have you come across that? It's where men overestimate how great we're doing. Because when we asked the ladies yesterday, are you being sponsored or mentored? They said 66% said no, right, okay? When actually, it seems here there's a lot of people, a lot of men mentoring and sponsoring women for career development. So I think there's going to be an interesting discussion about why that's different. But it's great to see that we've got that going on because we're going to come to this in a bit. Sponsorship is one of the key things as a male leader you can do to help the women develop in your organisation and mentor them too. So that's great. Okay, last one now, because I'm sure you're getting tired of this now, right? We can't just have a whole presentation based on these things, can we? We've got to have a fireside chat. What are the key barriers, and men can answer this too, for women in advancing their careers? Pick up to 3, okay? And so you're going to rank these according to whatever you think. Okay, hopefully it's clear on how to do that with your smartphone. Someone's ringing for help. I see there. He's got a phone up and he's answering, asking a friend what to. Okay, let's go. Okay, this is like a horse race, right? Where these keep changing as the votes come in. Isn't this exciting? Yes, 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 yes. Woohoo! Right. Okay. Right. The vote's still coming in. Okay, but what we see is a pretty clear picture. Now, this is super interesting. Okay, because this mirrors exactly what the ladies came up with yesterday. Okay, I thought career breaks for maternity would be the biggest barrier for women in advancing their careers, but it doesn't seem to be the case. What is the biggest barrier for women in advancing their careers according to this analysis here? It's male-dominated culture, right? Okay, and we need to be open about that and honest about that, and that's something I hear a lot. And that's one of the things that deters women from being in organisations, staying in organisations. So, thank you very much for your interactions with this. I hope you enjoyed that little quick quiz. And we're going to go into the fireside chat now. But thank you very much for your participation. I think you deserve a round of applause.
Right. So, reading your bio, Robert, we can see that you're working 40 years in inclusive executive leadership.
Yeah.
You're part of European Women Board and also you're trustee for United Nations Women UK.
Yeah.
So I would like to understand how you as a man have come to be a global gender expert in the gender equality movement.
Wow, okay. So I think this actually all started when I was at university, actually, because I'm sure like many of you, when I was at university, I saw lots of smart women in my classes and, we worked well together. But when I got into the world of work, I went into consulting. And this was 40 years ago, as you mentioned, right? Okay, so very different days. There weren't very many women in consulting, and there weren't very many women at the top in the organisation that I was working for. So I was thinking, like, well, I work with all these smart women in university. Why aren't they coming into the consulting world and doing great things in the consulting world? And part of the answer was the consulting world was relentless in terms of the amount of hours and the dedication to work that was required. There was very little focus on family in those days. You just worked and got promoted and all the rest of it. So what I realised was actually that there was a kind of lack of balance in the company and a lack of fairness about that. I saw women, very capable women, kind of feeling that they wanted to do other things instead. So we set up a women's network at Mercer, and I said to the lady who was setting it up, would you like to have men supporting your women's network? She said yes. So I said, the number one thing you can do then is change the name of it, because men are not going to come to a women's network meeting. Okay? So we called it the Vine, and like the grapes, the vine. And the great thing was, men didn't really know it was a women's network meeting. We had great discussions about gender equality and all the rest, but the men turned up. So as a result of that brilliant move, I got headhunted by a women's network to be the first man on the board of a women's network. Okay? And I encourage all the men in the room here to put yourself in a place where you are in the minority. Okay, how many of us get that opportunity regularly? Okay, so I was the only man with 12 super smart, very capable women. Okay, thinking how the hell am I going to keep up with those women? But that was a great experience, and from that, I then got asked to join the board of European Women on Boards and to be the trustee of UN Women. So I was one of the few men early on that was really speaking up about gender equality and the role that men need to play in this. And I think from that, I got lots of invitations to speak. And that's how you become a global expert. You speak about it, you do studies, and we'll talk about it a bit more. But that's kind of basically what happened.
Perfect, thank you. And then what is, in your opinion, why it's crucial for companies to engage men in creating gender equality and inclusive workplace?
Yeah.
And then I will put one more question here. What do you mean by allyship, and how it contributes to the gender equality movement?
Okay, right, I'm going to try and answer both of those.
Yes.
I think where we need to start from, really, is why are companies so interested in gender equality and having a more inclusive workplace? And that's because actually it's better for the economy and it's better for companies. So we were with Maya yesterday at Women on Boards Adria. She's an economist and researcher, and she came up with the data that there's a 5 to 35% increase in gross domestic product for an economy where women participate equally on the same basis as men. So just from an economic point of view, if you want to grow your economy here, then getting women more engaged in the workforce and equally to men is definitely the way to go. But the second thing is actually, it's better for company performance as well. So BlackRock, which is one of the world's largest investors, as you know, did a study last November which showed that companies that are more diverse outperform other companies by 29% over a 3-year period. Okay? So the data is there. I admit it's correlation rather than causation, but data is there to show that having gender equality in your organisation is really good for company performance. Okay? So if you're a board, directors or a management team, you must be asking, well, if that's the case, then why aren't we doing more about it? So I think that's kind of why. And I think if you think about it, why is it that adding women adds value? It's because women think differently to men. We avoid the group thing that often as men we have when we're all together. And when you look at it, women contribute brilliantly with different perspectives, different attitudes to risk. Was it Christine Lagarde that said, had it been Lehman Sisters? You know, I mean, it's basically, you know what I mean, right? We've got to embrace all views. We've got to embrace these diversities of perspectives, which I think women absolutely bring. So there's a really rock-hard business case for companies to be more gender equal. And I was chatting to a company yesterday, and a bank actually at this meeting, who said our customers are women as well. And I'd say, if we don't have women in our organisation, how do we reflect our customers? And if you're a retail business, for sure, that's a big issue. But also, the regulators are starting to get very interested in this too, because regulators want to see less risk in cultures where and see more diversity. So certainly in the UK, where I come from, the financial services regulator is saying that companies need to have more diversity in their leadership team. So there's lots of reasons why that's important, and we now see major companies doing this. So I'm working with some major companies. We can talk about some of them, like ENGIE, for example, the big global French energy company, who are revolutionising their business, moving towards green energy. And what they're saying is, we need all the talents to help us make this transition. We can't do it with the talent pool we've had in the past. We need the talent pool for today and for tomorrow, and that talent pool looks very different. It's much more diverse. So they've got a huge business reason as to why they want this kind of change. But you asked about allyship as well, right? Okay, so I've got to answer that one. And I think why men make such a difference here is very, very simply because men are in power. Men have 80% of the executive positions. Men are 60% to 70% of line managers. So imagine if we get the men in an organisation lined up behind supporting the women and encouraging the women, then we're going to have a much better performance and a much better outcome. So I think that's kind of absolutely critical. And BCG did a study which showed that companies where men are engaged in gender equality, 96% of those companies report progress. Only 30% of companies report any progress if they don't get the men engaged. So there's a real reason why we need to see that happen. And you know, Harvard Business Review did a study which showed that men that are allies advocate for women more than those that don't. They're 35% more likely to advocate for women to be promoted. They're 27% more likely to advocate for women even if they're not in the room, okay? And they're 29% more likely to insist on having women on the shortlist for recruitment, okay? So that is the impact that having men showing up as allies here. And I would invite all the men here to think about how they can be allies and how they can be these agents of change, because this is what needs to happen if we're going to move forward and unlock the value that we have in front of us.
Thank you.
Ah, Tanja, right. I suddenly realised we decided we'd have a conversation. Right, now I get to ask the questions. I was in my full flow there. Now a question for you, Tanja. Okay. This is going so smoothly. You've been almost 10 years in the UK, and actually I know you've worked in a couple of tier 2 banks, right? So could you tell us a bit more about what your experience has been with gender equality in top leadership positions?
Yeah, sure. So I will go back 10 years ago. So starting from company here, bank, which was quite diverse in the top management, also in the supervisory board, in the management board, one of the international banks here in Macedonia. When I moved in UK, I went in men's world, especially in the leadership positions, in the executive positions. So when I joined the first investment bank there, on our leadership meetings, it was we were only 2 ladies and then all men, 12 men. That was really interesting when I compare 10 years ago and now, and I can see really big difference thanks to a lot of initiatives that banks are working together with institutions like European Women on Board, with Women on Board UK, which help them to put strategies and initiatives in their daily work, how they can improve on diversity and inclusion. So in UK, I can say that in the top listed companies, the percentage of women on supervisory and management board is 40%. So from really low percent 10 years ago, which was maybe 7%, it get to 40%. Amazing percent achieved, but without votes. Because in UK, when you will say it's good to have it, it is like must.
Yes.
So that was really smoothly implemented through a couple of employees research groups, which are working especially with women and advancing and helping them how to get on the managerial positions. also through considering diversity in the promotion, considering diversity also in the recruitment process, having different type of trainings, but also mentorship and sponsorship program, which I will explain later.
Okay, wow, very good, thank you very much. Now I believe you have a question for me.
Sure. So I would like to ask, what are the factors in your experience which get men interested to be men allies, support women in the career? And then on the other side, what are the key barriers which are holding men back not to be engaged as a men ally support?
Yeah, super. So the research that's been done by Catalyst and other organisations shows that one of the biggest motivators for men to become allies to women in the workplace is a sense of justice and fairness. So if you've got colleagues around you who feel and believe in justice and fairness, then you've got potential allies with you there. Obviously, having daughters, having a working partner, these always come up, don't they? I know. Men have had daughters for decades, right? But I mean, or centuries or whatever. But more recently, I'm finding more men saying, actually, I'm worried, actually, about the future for my daughter in the workplace. I want to be leaving a legacy of actually doing something in the organisation I work for to create a better future for her and her generation. So actually, that's quite a powerful motivation. And especially, of course, if they've got working partners, they're trying to juggle 2 careers and children, and all of a sudden they start to think, hang on a minute, you know, we need to do this together rather than doing this individually. So I think that's kind of critical. The other thing I see, if the company says it's important to their business, and this is something like NG is saying, like it's vital to our business that our men are allies to the women in our workplace. If the company says that, men tend to be interested because they want to do what the company says. And if the company ties their pay packets to progress, the men are even more interested in progress. So I think the company and the leaders in the company saying this is important is absolutely critical. And I think the other thing to recognise is actually the benefits in it for us men if we get involved in diversity and inclusion and allyship. I did a survey of 100 male leaders who were already showing up as inclusive leaders and allies, and I asked them, what are the benefits you've seen from, you know, showing up in this way? And 97% said that we feel we are now better leaders and better human beings as a result of doing this work. And when we asked them why, they said one of the biggest factors now through this allyship work we've done is we build trust and we build the confidence of others around us, and we now feel that something's going on. We're okay. Right. So basically that was another huge factor. I think that's all. Yeah. Oh no, it's back on. Right? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Jolly good. So I think actually it's about these benefits that we can get as leaders from engaging in this work. And the really good news is companies now recognise these trends, and companies are hiring people and hiring men leaders particularly that know how to do this stuff. Because men leaders that know how to lead inclusively and build inclusion and build a diverse working team around them, they are much more attractive to employers than the leaders that don't know how to do that. So if you want to future-proof your career, I would say become an ally, become an inclusive leader, because that's the way to go for the future. Wow.
Thank you. So,
oh, I'm sorry, you asked me about overcoming the barriers. Yeah. So, okay, the number 1 barrier, let's face it, is most of us don't know what the issues for women are in the workplace. We exist in a wonderful little bubble where we don't get talked over in meetings, we don't get assumed to be junior, we don't get asked to make the coffee, we don't get ignored, you know, we don't get our promotion prospects assessed, and we're too emotional and all that stuff that comes out. So we don't really see those things. So one of the first things I say to any man that wants to be an ally is talk to the women around you, understand the issues for them in the workplace that they're seeing, because that'll make you more aware and will make you better able to work with them and lead them. And then I think it's basically about not knowing what to do. A lot of men say we don't know what to do. So we'll come back to a whole job description, if you like, for an ally. But very simply, one of the first things you can do as an ally is sponsor or mentor a woman to help her career development. You can start speaking up when you see bias and those jokes that go around sometimes in workplaces that are not very nice to women, you know, and things like that. So it's kind of starting to stand up on that already. And of course, we are worried. It's one of the biggest barriers for men is doing and saying the wrong thing. We don't want to look foolish. We don't want to, be upsetting people. We really want to do this in a very nice way. But so if we do make a mistake, believe me, I've made plenty in this. Give us constructive, gentle feedback, and then that way we're going to more likely, take that and then move on. And I think the last thing is basically, most of them don't see what's in it for them. I asked someone this morning, I said, I'm going to be giving a talk on gender equality. What do you think about it? He said, I've never actually thought about it. And I thought, wow, this is a great, kind of prove my point thing here. So there's a lot of us, men, that haven't even thought about it. And we don't know, and we don't see what's in it for us. So these benefits that I mentioned in the talk, I can send you all the research you like. Happy to share it with you. Share it with your male colleagues and show them there are real benefits from doing this. Let's not let anybody be unaware or uneducated on this point.
Thank you. So because I want really always to speak about practical things, about stories, could you please share what actions some of the big companies that you used to work with them, they have done to get successful gender equality?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting to look at what companies are doing here. Because as I mentioned earlier, big global companies now are putting programs into place, okay? And what they're doing, for example, Engie would be a good example, they're running women's leadership programs to help the women become leaders and develop into leadership roles. But what they're also doing is they're running workshops for the men, so that the men understand why that's happening and also what their role is in the future in the organisation in supporting that. And then they're also offering coaching to the men to help them what they learn on the workshops to put into practice in the day job. So that's kind of like a gold standard, if you like, of what companies are doing at the moment. And what's happening is that individual men in the company are now becoming, kind of experts on this, if you like, and they're becoming the people that get recognised in the company for being really good at doing this. So Maurizio Bar, for example, who's the head of Latin America for MG, he is now seen as one of those leaders that really shows up in this space, and his personal brand in the organisation has risen hugely from that kind of initiative. So I think if you're thinking again about how you can get that kind of recognition, then I think it's really worth doing that. So those are kind of some of the things that big companies are doing. But believe me, there's a lot of companies working in this space, and this is something I think we could talk about more in a little bit. Okay?
Perfect, thank you.
And Tanja, I think I now have a question for you, right? So can you tell us about your experience in male allies? In the investment banking world particularly, and has it been beneficial in your career?
Yes, indeed, a lot. So I will say again from the beginning. So mentorship and sponsorship were like programs implemented with investment banks were quite crucial, and they are quite crucial and important, not just for my career, but also for a lot of women colleagues that are working with me. One of the most interesting things was that immediately when I joined the team, I was aligned with a mentor who was more experienced, my peer, with 15 years experience in this position, but that was internally. But also, I was aligned with a person externally from another investment bank who was giving me a different perspective, how can I easily navigate my career in UK. That's about the mentorship. But then about the sponsors, usually in a lot of investment banks around the globe, it's not just UK, executive directors are having targets in their objectives, in the annual objectives, to support women in progression in career. Not every woman. When they will see a capacity and someone that can progress in the career, they are providing that support. So I would like here to explain a little bit the difference between mentor and sponsor quickly, because I know that in Macedonia, sponsor, it's not really sponsorship programs are not quite familiar, and it's something new. So I'm always giving the story with climbing on the mountain. So you have mentor is the person who is already on the top of the mountain, and you're down and you need to navigate up. So he's giving you navigation and directions, how you can climb in the mountain, on the career path. But the difference then of between mentor and sponsor is that the sponsor, again, is on the top of the mountain, but he's having an expedition. So he's having equipment, tools, and he's providing you with this equipment and tools in order different doors to be open for you. And also sponsors are usually the person which are behind the closed door saying good words for you. So that's the difference, yeah.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Okay, so now the last question, because I know we have really entertaining program later, so we are efficient. So what advice, Robert, would you give to all these men, individuals here, who want to become a better allies for women leaders, and what action they can take immediately?
Okay, well, thank you very much. My first recommendation, if I may make one, is you put this on the agenda for your next management team or your next board meeting, because this is such a topic that is now coming and is going to be a very big topic for the future as well. So make sure it's on the agenda for your company to start addressing. So if you've got the ability to influence that, then do that. On a more day-to-day basis, just set up a conversation with a woman colleague and use this conference as an excuse. Say some crazy English guy at the conference said, I should have a conversation with one of my female colleagues to find out more about how she sees the workplace and understand more about the issues that she faces. And I think, let's say, choose this woman that you know in your organisation to sponsor or to mentor. That's a very concrete and very critical thing that you can do to advance women and increase the talent level in your business. And speak up. If you see a woman being interrupted in a meeting or having her ideas stolen or even not being asked for her opinion, then just speak up and say, I think we need to hear from Tanja. Or Tanja was making a great point, can you please be quiet and let her, maybe we wouldn't quite put it that way, but can you let Tanja have what she needs to say. And then I think talk to other men about this session. Okay, we want to engage men, so you, all of us in the audience, but I would say particularly to the men, let's engage other men in this discussion. Because I think we put a big cultural change to make happen here. Let's be very clear about this. In all the countries that I've worked with, in all the companies I've worked with, that change doesn't happen overnight. NG's been working on this for 4 years, okay, and they're still working on it. And so let's recognise we're talking about societal issues in the backdrop, okay, of how we think about women and men in the workplace, okay, and then we've got what happens too. So let's recognise that this is a longer-term culture change project. But I think as the Chinese say, a march of 1,000 steps or whatever starts with the very first one. We've got to get started on this journey, otherwise we're all going to get left behind. Okay, so I think I would conclude with that point.
Right, amazing. Thank you very much, Robert, for bringing all these valuable points. And I think that we have raised some values and importance of this topic to all of you here. And maybe we can take questions later, maybe over the dinner and over the party, because I think we are running with the time.
We are. Okay. Well, thank you very much.